I have some notes over here to my right, so if you see my eyes go in this direction, that's why. I'm so proud to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. Estevan Rael-Galvez. This is the second time he actually is a presenter to our Voces group. The first time was back in October of 2017 at El Farol. When we got together, there were about 70 of us who gathered at El Farol to discuss the personal histories of Canyon Road. And we had 2 panel discussions, including 5 Santa Fe living treasures by coincidence, all who grew up on Canyon Road, and also Virginia Vigil and her 91-year-old cousin Ed Vigil, who spoke of their family histories on Canyon Road before the 1960s, when Canyon Road eventually transformed into the art community that we know today. Estevan spoke then at that gathering about the gentrification of our old neighborhoods and the importance of preserving our history and our family stories. You probably read Estevan's background when we did our initial postings on Voces, so you know his incredible his history as a historian. And let me see here. But I think that the one way that he would describe himself, first of all, is that he was raised the son of a sheep herder from Costilla and Cuesta in Norte New Mexico. Estevan was raised by devoted parents and a community which nurtured him to value the land and those who toiled in it. I recently saw a PBS Colores on YouTube, where Estevan was being interviewed, and he was asked, "What is the job of a historian?" Estevan quoted one of his favorite writers, Eduardo Galeano, who said, "I am not a historian. I am a writer who would like to contribute to the rescue of the kidnapped memory of my land and my people." Estevan says, "I think that is the job of the historian, to recover the stories and journal the connection between the past and the present." Estevan?
Thank you so much, Maria. Well, I'm so honored to be with you all here. I'm going to start sharing my screen, if it's okay. I love seeing these everyone's face. First of all, I'm just going to take that in for a moment. This is what community looks like, I suppose, in 2020. Doing our very best. I love seeing Anita's smiling face there. So I'm going to try and hopefully I can do this. I did it. Can you all see?
Yes, perfect.
Pupuave, buenas tardes, good afternoon. I'm so deeply honored to be here with you. I'm truly honored that Maria and James, Stephen, Jim asked me to be with you here today. It's I particularly as we convene Voces en Casa, sheltered, safe, and secure. I would like to dedicate this moment, however, to those without shelter, who do not feel safe, and whose lives have passed, some because of the pandemic, some because of age and despair, and others because of the systemic realities where the very life force and breath is taken from them. No doubt we are living in such an interesting historical present, where we are being called to think carefully about how we encounter one another, cautiously, thoughtfully, where the impact of what is happening now is not only local. Oops, I'm trying to shift my screen here, and there we go. Where not only local, but truly it's global, and does not regard political boundaries on a map. And though rich and poor will fare differently, we are being called to reimagine nations and think more about individual persons. It's easy to think of individual persons as we see our screens here and the beauty of our homes. I like to just take in the backgrounds, whether it's a forest as Maria has behind her, or images that each of you have chosen in individual artifacts. We're asked to think about those that live down the block or wherever people are in the world, a mother grieving a son. This opportunity calls for a creative reimagining, for sure. Maria said this, but before I share some thoughts over the next 15 minutes or so, I meant to start my timer here. Let me begin as I learned early in life to do, acknowledging the ground upon which we stand, recognizing the indigenous people, particularly the Tewa and the Tano people of this place. And because we are not static museum pieces, equally important is to acknowledge that we are a people whose identity, whose place here is equally layered by the convergence of people over time, the convergence of different places. And today we touch this ground wherever we are and acknowledge the sovereignty of those layers, the breath of our ancestors. I usually like to introduce myself in a way that I was taught early in life to do. But I don't want to take too much time, but I want to just say that I've had the privilege of study and serving in many capacities, local and national, but my core values come from my core values have shaped my hunger for memory and my thirst for justice. By a teacher who taught 40 years in Cuesta, and by a borreguero. Yes, it's true. I'm raised by a sheep herder and a rancher and a farmer who is here. They're both 90. They're both safe. I'm trying my very best to keep them as safe as possible. But they taught me my core values, but including my grandmother, who taught me from a very young age to draw deeper from the wells of history and memory, even from the broken histories, the absent histories, the invisible, the silent histories, mine and those that I would encounter along the way, to take those stories, center them, and to raise them up. Centered in this context, I often say that at least 3 threads can be found woven into the fabric of my professional work. What I refer to as my core 3, my 3 C's, pulling back the layers and raising consciousness, illuminating and inspiring creativity, and finding and fostering a sense of community. I've had the privilege of doing this work as a state historian. Some of you may remember the digital history project that I established back then, trying to address issues of access. Not everyone has the ability to come into an archive. So I created this. It's no longer up, but I'm pretty proud of it in terms of the different layers and ways in which I was able to curate culture in a very different way. And then my work, obviously, at the National Hispanic Cultural Center. I used to say when I was a state historian that I was always a historian in search of a stage. And then I found many stages at the National Hispanic Cultural Center. And it reflected, my work there also reflected my core way of being. I'm actually trained as an anthropologist and a historian, interdisciplinary scholar, but I learned from a very early age that there are more than one way to tell a story. There's more than one way to tell a story. We have to lean in and listen to them. And so I value that. And because of that, I was drawn to the arts. And then, of course, I took my work to Washington, D.C., where I was based, but I essentially was in charge of historic sites and a portfolio of historic sites from coast to coast. And really, it was my way of actually bringing to fore all of my passions around story and place, but also shaking these places up. You know, the National Trust was in charge of 7 different plantations, and in not a single one of them were we talking about race. And so I came in and I stirred it up, as some of you know I do. So, and you know, I try to do that in a way that is thoughtful, that opens up the complications and allows us to see the humanity of individuals in different ways. I love my work. There was there 5 years, but there's no place like home. And 5 years ago or so, I made a decision to return home. Part of it is that my partner's family my partner was here, my parents were aging, and I needed to get back to my writing. And so while some of my work as a consultant and a strategist is situated as far away as the Middle East, sometimes I have to get up at ungodly hours to actually have some conversations now. I'm most happy when that work is situated right here at home, in the place that is based on several projects that I have been working on and I continue to work on. And I wanted to just skim over them briefly if I could, recognizing that time is a constraint. In 2016, my firm was engaged to design, plan, and develop the first cultural plan for the city of Santa Fe, which I developed not from the institutions down, though yes, I had conversations with the opera, with galleries, with museums. I was most interested and most engaged. This is where I applied my work as a cultural anthropologist, working with thousands of residents, engaging them on buses. It's the first time I had jumped on a bus in the city of Santa Fe, walking into every single bakery. And I think I cut my hair in every single barbershop, because I think of barbershops as places where stories gather. I'm longing for barbershops right now, though. It culminated in a final document, this one, Culture Connects Santa Fe, addressing the meaning and value of culture, but it also surfaced the tensions and the challenges, which I always see as opportunities. That project was never meant to be an end, but instead an opening, and has led to several initiatives in Santa Fe and New Mexico. This one, Maria mentioned that I was working at the time on, McCune approached me and they said, we know that you want to go deeper. What 2 projects do you want to go deeper in? And I like to joke around that I like the light subjects. So let's get into gentrification and historic trauma. So this is part of the work that I was doing with Chainbreaker Collective, which actually works to empower the least empowered in our city, in our community. And places, I love this image because it represents another of my core values, which is equity. I love the images of the individuals who are sharing core values at the right. I love this project that I worked on. It's on my website, which I'll share at the end of this. But these are the core values that we were gathering at Walmart. I said to myself, if we're going to gather in a place, we gathered some in the plaza, but a new type of marketplace where there are more individuals in our community gathering now than any other place. I tried to think of what that place was, and I ended up with Walmart. So that's where we started to gather some of these stories. Following 2 years of planning and gathering oral testimony, another project that I worked on was, and I'm just going to start a video here. Let's see, hopefully you can. It was called Presente, which included conversations and performances in schools. And finally, it opened up on the stage of the Lenzik with carefully woven production, which included video testimonies and voices and movements of a community ensemble, stories that revealed the painful realities of displacement that have taken place across time and space. and that continue to exist in this city, in this place that I call a vulnerable querencia. To respond to it, recognizing both the absence and the continuing presence of people who are struggling with the loss and displacement, we stage that. As I've always said with this work, it is a process. I didn't want it to culminate on the stages of the Lenzik. In fact, I actually want it, as we're going to start to do, or we plan to do this year, to stage it in neighborhoods across the entire city, not in a privileged space like this. I love that it was at the Lenzik, but I'm going to just quiet down so you can hear a moment.
Now layered and modern. It was and is still her place. A place of rest for white shell woman. She journeys across the ocean, but turns back when she remembers her children. What were you seeking when you left? What were you seeking when you arrived? Perhaps we seek the same things. Teresa Gabaldon Rios.
Gregory Aguilar. Dion Boya. Coltrane Timothy.
Jesus Rios.
I'm going to just skip ahead. Oops, I'm trying to. The next project that I worked on was, so when McCune approached me, I said, we need to start addressing these issues in our community around historic trauma. And I started a project of truth and reconciliation. I actually talked to 10 different reconciliation projects globally, from South Africa, South America, Greensboro, North Carolina. I was trying to learn how other communities had dealt with these difficult issues. It led to a lot of different issues that I was working on, of course. But one, it culminated with an exhibit that we did when I was invited to curate at IAIA Mokna. I gathered, let's see, I think 7 Hispano artists, Indo-Hispano artists, and 7 Native American tribal artists, and it culminated in this project that we called Reconciliation, including a healing garden that we grew right outside the gallery for the first time. Really proud of this. It was really beautiful. I hope that you all saw it. It was up for almost a year. Finally, let me share another project that I've continued to work on for a couple of years, which is called the Manitos Digital History Project, Community Memory Project, rather. The objective of that project is to recover and revitalize cultural heritage, ultimately culminating in the creation of community-based archives and an online museum collection. I've had the privilege of working in archives for many, many, many years in different capacities. But I love this project because it forced someone like me to test my assumptions, to actually work with rural communities in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and began asking, what is important to you? What are the issues? What do you value most? And it's allowed us to actually look in our homes at objects and see how those in many ways reflect more about who we are than the museums possibly could. I still love museums, but I think it's a balanced approach. And it's allowed us to actually start to develop creatively new icons that reveal who we are. So these are 4 of them. Some of you must have read, I've shared a lot about this project on Voces, about the abuelos, about the curandera, mayordomo, maestro. So this project is really great. I'll share the website at the very end. Finally, the thing I wish I was only working on, as much as I love these other projects, is something I've worked on for, I want to say at least 20 years professionally, but I was raised on stories about slavery. I usually do Zoom with the background right behind me, but I'll share that on Voces soon. I was hesitant to share these PBS series that I did because it just felt too focused on me, but I'll share it nonetheless because it's actually about other people. It's about people like this in front of you. I completed my dissertation on Native American slavery way too long ago, about 20 years ago. I have returned home in part to pick up this project again and finish the book. I've been working on an exhibit as well, possibly that will take place at the Smithsonian in several years from now. But I'm also working on an archive that I'm calling Unbound. And it'll list the thousands of individuals who were impacted, who experienced these captivities, and who passed that legacy on to individuals like myself. And I'm going to name each one and identify documents in that, and it'll be a major project. And I want to thank Priscilla, who is online today, because she's one of the volunteers who's helping me rearrange and extract some of that information. And if anyone else wants to volunteer on this, this is a major, major project as well. So let me end by thanking you, but also with a nod towards one of my favorite metaphors for my work and for Santa Fe, and maybe even for the moment that we're living in, and that's the metaphor of a grove of aspen trees, which offer, I think, a way of thinking not only about identity, but three key concepts: roots, resilience, and radiance. As many of you know, the aspen trees often crop up after a fire has devastated a mountain, and the mountain is working to heal itself from what has happened in the past. And that resilient growth is a reflection of that healing. As those of you who know about aspen trees, like the ones that are above us in our Santa Fe Basin, it's one root system. They're all interconnected. It's like this Voces community. It's one root system. We're all tangled together beautifully, complicated. And then there's the quaking leaves, which reveals the radiance, of course, and then the resilience is part of what the whole thing is all about. I'm open to questions. I've shared in brief each of these things. You can learn a little bit more about my work at my firm, Creative Strategies 360, and about the Manitos project at manitos.net, which is our blog. But I'm happy to stop my screen sharing now and go on from there.
Thank you, Esteban. That was amazing. I'm sure everyone was truly enjoyed that. Very, very good, very good. So, James, can you read off any questions that may have come in?
Yeah, there was just a couple. There was a part where you talked about the 3 C's, creativity and community. What was the third one?
Consciousness, raising consciousness.
Oh, never mind. Somebody answered that in the chat room already. All right. This is from Scott Horton. Do you expect to produce a book based of mud and memory? Is there a physical repository for the oral histories you have taken?
I'm not planning to produce a book on mud and memory necessarily, though the book that I am working on is about the silence of slavery, Native American slavery in the Southwest, that I've been working on for a long time. Though if I can finish that I'll open up the possibility of other books, certainly. But the other question, James, was?
Is there a physical repository for the oral histories you have taken?
A physical repository. It's a really good question. For the Manitos project that we've been working on, we didn't want to assume that communities wanted a physical repository, and it varies from rural village to rural village. For instance, in Abiquiu, they actually do want their archive to be both digital, available to anyone online, but also available in the Abiquiu library. So it'll vary from community to community. I think at the end, once we start to collect these oral histories and scan documents or photos, we are starting to also work with the University of New Mexico to create a virtual archive, but I can imagine that we also, if we take in artifacts or documents, that we won't work with one of the existing archives. No need to create a new one.
We'll have about 5 more minutes of questions, and the ones that we don't get to, we'll get those to you, Esteban, and maybe have you email or messenger an answer back. We'll figure that out. Because we do want to have enough time for everybody to go around the room and introduce themselves.
Of course, I've taken probably too much time.
No. This has been amazing. James, how about 2 more questions?
All right, we got one more so far. Mike Taylor asked, what changes took place at the National Trust as a result of your tenure there?
Mike, my friend, I love seeing you. So you know, one of the, there were several things I hope took hold. I was in charge of all of the historic sites. Many of them were house museums. And I used to kid around. It ranged from, you saw an image of the Philip Johnson Glass House, or I didn't show an image of the Rockefeller Estate. Everything from something very high-end to many, many, many house museums. And it was Picasso's that we were charged with stewarding to, I used to joke around, to probably 1 million doilies. And I always wanted to shake that up a bit. One of the first things that I did was I developed business plans for every historic site, or worked with my directors to do that, to actually think about what, sort of how you monetize that in a different way. But more important than that was to think about like the cultural resources. I talked about these as community-based assets. And if they were not working with the community that surrounded them, then it really was not going to be able to survive. There are over 10,000, or there were then 10,000 house museums in the United States. Many of them do not have business models. Many of them don't have community-based models. So I'd like to think that the work that I was doing to pull back the layers, to bring in artists to shake things up, to do away with static-based tours, which is not the way I think about museums. It's about immersing yourself in an experience. So I hope that took a hold. The biggest thing, though, was to actually expand the notions of whose site got remembered. This is something I ended up working with the National Park Service. Of all of those historics, of all of the national registered sites, only at the time, this was an effort led by Secretary Salazar when he asked me to be part of a committee. Less than 2% of those sites reflected women's history, and less than 2% reflected people of color.
James?
Yeah,
James?
I've got a couple more. Let's see.
James?
Yeah.
I tell you what, let's kind of cut it off there. And
Sure.
can you somehow capture all of the questions and send them to me? And I, in turn, will send them to Esteban to get his answers. And then we'll post all of that on our Facebook group, along with the video of Esteban's talk here.
Got it. I pulled there was 3 left, so I pulled those.
Okay, great. Stephen.
By the way, just to remind everybody, this is being recorded, so we'll send out a link and you can watch this, and all the questions on all the chat are part of that recording as well, just FYI.
Perfect. Stephen, you want to kick off our introductions?
Well, okay, yeah, first of all, let's just give everybody a great big hug and give a smack on the lips. Let's say this is something really pretty bitchin'. You know, what we've been doing here is really pretty cool.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Estevan, but also a really big thank you to Jim Baca, Maria Montes, and Jim Baca III for putting all this stuff together. Thank you very, very much. I'm very proud to be associated with you guys. What a junk work that was. Very, very cool.
A labor of love.
So are we going to unmute everybody now? Everybody's unmuted?
Yeah, I think, do you have a list of who you're going to ask to introduce themselves? How do you want to do that?
No, I'm just going to go around. As we see everybody on the screen right now. You know,
all right, I'll follow you on the screen. And I think
everybody just go forward and when it's your turn, tell us your name and where you're from, and we'd be glad to hear from you. Also, I want to give a special thanks to a bunch of you people that we haven't seen before. You know, like that have been on here, like Buddy Mays and, you know, Scott Horton and all of you guys that have never been in here before. George Pomonos, I haven't seen him for a long time. Hi, George. And to Rebecca. Rebecca hasn't been one of our old-timey folks that born and raised there, but she's just stuck up in Canada for some reason. So all of you folks that are here for the very first time and are joining us, we're very glad that you're here with us. We love it when you're here, and we're going to do this again. We're going to have a whole bunch more fun, you betcha. So go around and somebody get started and just tell us who you are and what you're about. Maylene, start with you. Maylene, are you unmuted?
She's unmuted.
she should
I'm
be
on my way
good.
to unmute myself. It took a little
There you
while
go.
to find it.
Okay, yeah. Tell us who you are and what you're about.
So I'm Marlene Meyer. I live in Denmark, Copenhagen, and right in the middle of of Copenhagen, and I'm made on Canyon Road. My father was from Santa Fe. His whole family was from Santa Fe, and my mom is Danish. And I was made on Canyon Road, and I was brought in my mom's belly to Denmark, and I'm born in Denmark and raised in Denmark. And when I came back, I went to visit my family many times. But when I came back when I was about 20 with my old boyfriend, we were actually taking a picture out on Canyon Road on some of the houses. And my mom's friend saw that picture and said, wow, this is the house where your mom and dad lived in. And I had no idea. I just took the picture because I felt it was fun. So that's a little about me.
Fabulous. Who wants to go next?
Well, it
Kathy?
looks like I'm next in line. Mike Taylor. I live here in La Cienega, just outside Santa Fe. I've been here living in Cienega for the last 35 years with my wife, Gail. But I'm originally from southern New Mexico, a little place called Mesilla next to Las Cruces, close to the borderlands down there. So I've been going back and forth. My father's still with us, so I keep going down there to help with his care. And I just wanted to thank Estevan and Voces for this wonderful opportunity to hear these good words today.
Great, Mike. Somebody next.
I'll go. Dale Zan, I'm glad to see Mike Taylor here. We forgot the Romero part of his name, which is up there from Romeroville. So to add that, Mike was actually a boss of mine at one time. And what's behind me is the project that I've been working on for 2 years now is the De La Peña Applegate house on 831 El Caminito. And I just sent Mike a note that says, I need to talk to you about the mud plaster because it's continuously had mud plaster. But I appreciate Esteban's words because as an historic architect, I do very similar things where you're unpeeling the layers, and I just love to get it stripped down and say who did this and who might have done that. And so the oral histories go back a ways, and then I found out some things just recently. The guy that was the cowboy writer that wrote Shane and then made that into a movie and stuff like that. He lived and wrote a couple of his books in here. But slowly the history unpeels itself. And so that's kind of what I do with architecture and historic houses. And it's always, you want to be alone with Al sometimes because you feel like the voices are in there trying to get out and speak to you.
I'll go next because I'm an enjaradora and I relate to what you're saying, Gail. I'm a Tauseña. I grew up on Taos Plaza. I'm an enjaradora. I've worked on lots of old buildings in my 25 years as a licensed construction enjaradora. And I'm a painter and a writer.
Welcome.
Awesome. Somebody next. Yes.
All right, we'll take it. I'm Ron Ortiz Dinkle, and this is Nancy Cook. And well, I'm originally from Santa Fe, but we're living in Cuenca, Ecuador. So I think we may be the farthest away right now today. But it's wonderful getting a chance to see all of you, yeah, especially my sister down on the bottom. Hi, Judy.
Really cool.
And former co-worker, Priscilla, nice to see you.
Very cool.
And of course, everybody else gets a virtual hug from Nancy and me. We're delighted to be with you and look forward to having many more of these sessions.
Very good.
So I'll go next.
I'll go next.
Ron. I'm Priscilla Shannon Gutierrez, and I am a retired educator. I retired from the School for the Deaf just over a year ago. I am also a writer. I write for the Santa Fe Trail Association and erstwhile historian. I like playing detective and, again, peeling back the layers. Very interested in Taos history. Did a bio on Carlos Bovia. Would love to chat with Anita a little bit about some of the work that she's done, and really enjoying the work with Estevan. I'm very grateful that I kind of stumbled into it and learning a lot about things I did not know about the history. So anyway, delighted to be here, first timer, and I look forward to future sessions. So that's it.
Welcome.
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 Thank you.
I'm a newbie, so I'll take it next. Do I have to do anything? There we are. My name is Buddy Mays. I'm new to the site. Thank you, Maria, for inviting me. I'm a photographer, a writer. I was originally from Santa Fe, born in Santa Fe. Lived there about half of my adult life, and now I live in Bend, Oregon. Bend is the Santa Fe of Oregon, basically. It's in the mountains. It's a ski resort. It's got a lot of people that it shouldn't have, but the town just blew up just like Santa Fe did, which is why we had to leave there. And Bend is the same way, but it's a gorgeous. And hi, all.
Hello. Welcome. Love your.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
I just wanted to say Kathy Capron Tully, and I was raised in Milwaukee. Went to Colorado, raised my family, lived up there many, many years in Evergreen. Loved it. But as you all know, New Mexico never leaves you. So when I had the opportunity it's been almost 2 years, I came back. So I'm back a mile from my childhood home, living in Milwaukee, and not too far from Stephen's old digs in Espanola. So I'm right between Santa Fe and Espanola and loving it. And I'm home and it's wonderful. And I can't believe it's 10 years since our first luncheon up the road at Umayo.
Very cool.
So
Welcome home.
Very much, Nancy.
Welcome home. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just saw that they're opening, Maria. She's opening full. Yeah, and so that's all good. Things are coming back to life kind of slowly here, but it's good to see everybody.
Good to see you, Kathy.
I'm
Good.
trying to get on, but oh, there I am. Hello.
There you are. Hi, Polly.
You
Hi,
can,
Polly.
there I am. I'm not good at this. I'm from You Don't Want to Know Where, but my first year in Santa Fe was 1952. So, okay, I earned it. And I lived in Santa Fe as a painter, an artist, until I had to move because it got too expensive and too big. But guess what? I live in Albuquerque, so I can go eat anytime I want to.
I'll go next. My name is Amanda Quintana Bowles. Born and raised in Santa Fe, currently in South Bay of California. I'm just about an hour and a half south of Maria and Henry. I'm a portrait photographer. I was a 1993 Fiesta Queen, Reina de la Fiesta. And I performed music Nuevo Mexicana for 30 years professionally. My sister Jackie, who passed on back in February. So unfortunately, I've also kind of retired, but hopefully we'll be getting back into it. Miss Santa Fe so much. Thank you for keeping us all together, the whole Voces team. Muchísimas gracias. Much love.
Hi, George.
Hey, my name is Luis Lorenzo. I'm coming in from Barcelona, Spain. I'm a retired Spanish researcher on basically on Hispano identity and heritage and the problematic conflicts in New Mexico. And I'm using this as a tool and as a following thread to keep my connection, my emotional connection with you, Norteños. I love you all. I love you all. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank
Good
you,
to have
everybody.
Bienvenidos.
Thank you, everybody.
Welcome. Bienvenidos.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Crown, and I was born in Santa Fe and raised in Santa Fe and miss it like crazy. I live in Montreal, Quebec, Canada now, which, as you hear me complain all the time, it has it's a wonderful city to live in.
Wonderful weather.
It's crazy, but we had snow and a heat and 98-degree weather this month.
The hell were you?
May. So, yeah, I have a family up here. I'm a craniosacral therapist. I teach a professional training in craniosacral therapy. I'm a quilter. I do fabric art. I'm happy to have come to Montreal and have recovered one of my ancestral languages, which is French. And I love this group for keeping me connected to my homeland. I haven't been able to travel as much as I would like recently. So I'm so grateful to all of you. It's, growing, no one here can understand me because no one has a clue what it's like growing up in Santa Fe in the 50s. It was a special, special time. And you guys are all special to me because you keep me connected with that. So thank you.
Merci.
Good to see you.
Great to see you all.
Yeah, really cool.
I'll jump in after Rebecca since we went to school together. I'm Julie Campbell, and hello from Richmond, Virginia. I've lived in Virginia for 25 years now, but I grew up in Santa Fe from 1959 to 1973. I'm a proud alumna of Garcia Street Club, and I've retired from a long career in communications and historical editing, and right now I'm writing a memoir about growing up in Santa Fe. So this group helps.
Awesome.
This group keeps me connected to Santa Fe. I visit as often as I can. Obviously, that's not happening anytime soon, but I just love staying connected and be connected with Rebecca. And I knew Kathy's sister back in the day, and I've gotten to know Maria. So it's a pleasure, and thank you so much for keeping us all together with Santa Fe. I appreciate it.
Cool. Very cool.
I guess I can go next. Hi, Judy Dinkle Brito Hastead. I have to thank everybody for giving us a chance for me to say hi to my brother. and my sister-in-law face to face because I'm doing this kicking and screaming. I never get on the screen. But again, thank you. And the program was so interesting and so many connections. And I have to make a quick hello to Amanda because she was my student. And so I have to say hi. And sitting with me today is my daughter, Anne. Hello.
My goddaughter.
Cool.
Good seeing you.
And out of screenshot, out of screenshot is my husband, Jack Hasted. And so he's been in on this also.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Jack.
They're saying hi to you.
We miss you.
I have to go, you guys.
No.
Bye, Polly.
Bye, Polly.
Bye. Oh,
Bye,
you
Polly.
know, I'm hugging you, kissing you. Let's do this again, please. Let's do this again.
Yes, we will.
Nice.
Okay. Adios.
Ciao.
Hey, Virginia.
Who's next?
Muted.
George.
George.
Virginia. Virginia's muted.
The dog. The dog.
He's muted.
George. George is muted too.
Can't hear you, George.
You're muted up, George.
There we go. Is that better?
There you go.
Hey.
Now we'll never stop him.
I was born and raised in Santa Fe. My father owned the restaurant on the south side of the plaza from 1932 to 1954. I worked in that restaurant from the time I was 12 years old. So I got to know downtown Santa Fe in those years. I graduated from Santa Fe High in 1950. I went on and pursued a career in research chemistry. I worked in research facilities in Denver, Colorado Springs, New York, and ended up the last few years, about 30 years actually, in a research facility on the campus of North Dakota State University in Fargo, North Dakota. My wife and I now live in Bismarck, North Dakota with our oldest son and his family. And I really grew up with Hispanic culture in Santa Fe. My parents were both immigrants from Greece. And so English was my second language. My third language is Spanish, which I don't get to practice anymore because there are very few Hispanics up in the northern plains. I was welcome in many Hispanic homes in those years. And I have a very deep appreciation for the Hispanic culture. In fact, most of my friends, my close friends, were Hispanic. I'd love to get back to Santa Fe, but that's not what's going to happen in my life this time. So I thank Estevan for his talk. I came in a little late. I had lost the connection there. Anyway, it's nice to see all of you in person. I really appreciate Dale Zinn's. He and I are kind of at an intersection between the old school and the younger school. He's a good friend of Ike. Ike was a very close friend of our family, his family and our family. I taught Ike his first lesson in tennis. And so...
He's talking about Ike Kalangas, by the way.
That's funny, yeah. Right.
And Kalangas taught me.
Yeah. Eddie taught you also, huh?
Yeah.
Good to see you, George.
I think I've rattled on long enough here.
That was the
Good to see you,
Mayflower
George.
Hotel.
You look great.
Good to see you, George.
George
see
is
you,
also
George.
a great artist with colored pencils.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I took that up after I retired from chemistry. Chemistry was my first.
You make your own pencils?
Who's next?
Who else?
Virginia's
Martha.
muted.
Hi.
Message.
Oh, Martha, hi.
Hi, Martha.
Martha and Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark, fortunate husband of Martha.
Yes, you're right about that.
Born and raised in Santa Fe and raised mostly on Canyon Road, close to Virginia Beach Hill. And also I spent some time on San Acacio Street, Garcia Street, but mainly on Canyon Road. And I was a school teacher here in Santa Fe at Santa Fe High. I also taught in Pecos for a while, but since then I've just been dabbling in, we built our own home, dabbling in woodwork and metalwork and art of various mediums. But at any rate, I'll let Martha take the floor.
Hi, it's good to see everybody. I'm Martha Vados Ewing. I am retired from my state government position in human resources, a manager there. And I took on artwork and got into straw applique and juried into Spanish market. Thank you, Luis. And have been totally immersed in doing my artwork as a prayer. And I'll end my introduction by saying, I pray every day for everyone for their safety.
Thank you.
We have
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Very good. I'll go ahead and go next. Mark, first of all, thank you, Estevan, if you're still there, and Maria, James, and Stephen for bringing us together. What a delight it is to see everyone. My goodness, no connection would remain if it weren't for all the efforts of Voices. So I'm pretty excited to be a part of this, even just to see everyone's faces. You know, Martha, I can't follow, I mean, I pray as well too, and I light candles. And I just, it's a blanket prayer. And I'm looking forward to when we can all get together and celebrate our anniversary for Voices. I miss
Yeah.
Just for those of you who aren't from Santa Fe, if you ever do come to Santa Fe and receive a citation, traffic, or a DUI, I am the judge that you're going to come and see. And I remain doing that, and I will for probably about 3 more years. So hello, everyone.
Thanks, Virginia.
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you.
Anybody else?
I just want to, you already know enough about me, but this is more of an explanation that I feel like I miss a lot of things on our Voices page nowadays, even though you see me posting, but our grandbabies are living with us. They came out about 2 months ago from Brooklyn, escaping New York, as you can understand why. Yeah.
And so they've been living here with us. Caspian is 4 and Ilona is 2. And so I'm busy Grammy. And very often when I'm posting, one of them is on my lap. And so I see a lot of amazing conversations going on between our Voces folks, and I want to jump in sometimes, and I don't just have the time to do it. So I just really appreciate everybody and your contributions, the amazing photographers that we have in our group who post their wonderful photos, and our artist friends who I just love, all our artists, and our historians, of course. So just an explanation, not so much a description about myself, but
just enjoy those grandbabies.
Yes. Yeah, more grandbaby pictures. Keep them coming. We love
I love them. Yours too, Rebecca.
Diane, there she is.
Yes. Okay, here I go. Just real brief, my name is Diane Torres Velasquez, and I'm from Albuquerque. And so I love this group because I got to spend a couple of years living in Santa Fe and getting to know Maria's family very well. And I really get a lot from hearing the stories about Santa Fe in the 50s and 60s and all through the decades. You don't quite get the same thing here in Albuquerque, although, you know, it's nice to look at our history here as well. So thank you all for sharing, and this was wonderful. Dr. Rael-Galvez, that was an incredible presentation. There's so much that you have done with your life. It's just amazing. I definitely am going to be looking into those websites and learning more. Thank you.
Good to see you, Diane.
Thank you.
That's everybody.
Is that everybody?
I think so.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
How about Leslie Garcia?
Be well and stay safe. And
Leslie
Garcia.
Is that M-I-K-I? I'm seeing M-I-K-I. Is that Leslie? No, there's Leslie.
Oh,
okay.
there's Leslie.
So there may be two people.
I'm shy. My name is Leslie Garcia, born and raised in Santa Fe. My older sister, Reyes Aragon, was recently with me but snuck out. My older siblings were, you know, especially her, part of the Santa Fe East Side, West Side, and she was quite the shaker-upper, and she still is. So I think it's kind of, we always tell her, you wonder why we're like that. So now in my current life, I'm doing that. Started off softly. I work with the foundation. So I work really hard to change perceptions and really help my community. And this is my first time, so thank all of you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. Very cool. Very good.
I saw Virginia Castellano just signed in. Is she here? Virginia Castellano? I think she signed in
She's
late.
muted.
And no camera.
She's having problems.
Just a quick comment here. You all received an invitation to this via email. And if you can take a couple of minutes and reply to that email with any feedback you might have on this or ideas or suggestions, I would certainly appreciate it.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Many thanks to you.
Thanks, everybody.
For putting it together. Appreciate it.
Everybody stay safe.
Yes,
Please.
absolutely.
Get together and let's get together and let's go have something to eat. Let's go.
Sophia's.
I'll buy you an airplane ticket.
I'll get that. I'll do that.
Mike Taylor, do you know Denise Chavez in Mesilla?
Yes, I do. She went to Madonna High School.
Ah.
And we were always around Madonna High School when she was there a long time ago. Yeah, Denise is wonderful. Margot's her sister here in Santa Fe.
Yes, yeah. They're close friends of mine. I just figured when you were talking before that you had to know each other.
Yeah, we do.
I recently
I'll tell you.
posted, she's a well-known Latina author, and I recently posted her taco memoirs, I think it was, and
She's great. She runs a wonderful bookstore down in Las Cruces, right on the Camino Real.
Right.
That specializes in Hispanic.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
Nice meeting you.
Just so everyone knows, we have a guest room. Anybody that wants to come and visit Cuenca, Ecuador, you're very welcome.
Really?
Thank you.
Yay.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, James. I'm heading out. Bye.
Bye, Deanna.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Nice
everyone.
seeing everybody. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, Judy.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye, Bye, Ron.
Nice to see
Bye.
you.
We want to do this
Bye.
again.
Yes, we will.
Hugs for Jack, Judy.
Fine.
Will do.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Great to see you, George.
Yes, absolutely. George was there in the beginning of Voces.
Oh yeah, he was there from the beginning. He should be one of our speakers one of these days. His
That's right.
memories of Santa Fe, the 40s and the 50s, probably the best time to have lived in Santa Fe.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was.
Good to see you all.
Bye-bye.
We'll do this again soon.
Thank you for putting this together. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Bye, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. It's great.
Yeah.